Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at Moscovici's 1969 consistency study, which you need to know for AQA A-level psychology in the subtopic of social influence. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Moscovici aimed to investigate whether a consistent minority could influence a majority to give an incorrect answer in a color perception task. Moscovici, 1969, conducted a laboratory study using a sample of 172 female participants who were placed into 32 groups of 6 and shown 36 slides, all varying shades of blue. The participants were first given eye tests to ensure that they were not colorblind. The participants were then asked to state out loud the color of each slide. 2 out of the 6 participants were Confederates and the other 4 were naive participants who did not know the other 2 were Confederates. There were 2 conditions: a consistent condition, where the 2 Confederates said that all 36 slides were green, and an inconsistent condition, where the Confederates said that 24 out of the 36 slides were green and 12 out of the 36 slides were blue. The research also used a control group, where there were no Confederates, and all the participants had to do was identify the color of each slide. Moscovici found that in the consistent condition, the participants agreed on 8.2% of the trials and 32% gave the same answer as the minority on at least one trial. In the inconsistent condition, the participants only agreed on 1.25% of the trials. And in the control group, participants were incorrect on 0.25 of the trials. Moscovici concluded that a consistent minority is more effective in influencing the majority compared to an inconsistent minority. In a follow-up study where participants privately wrote their answers down on a piece of paper, Moscovici found that participants were more likely to agree with the minority view. This suggests that the view expressed by people in public was just the tip of the iceberg, and minority influence might be much more powerful than current research findings suggest. Moscovici's study has several strengths and limitations. A strength of Moscovici's study is that he took an innovative approach. The study was among one of the first to systematically investigate minority influence, paving the way for further research to investigate this area of psychology. This study therefore laid the foundations for more serious and in-depth research to take place. This is a strength because it suggests that the study's innovative approach paved the way for further research in psychology, particularly in the realm of minority influence, allowing for more in-depth exploration in this area. A strength of Moscovici's study is that it has high control over confounding and extraneous variables, which allows a cause and effect relationship to be established and allows the study to replicated and repeated to test the validity and reliability of findings. Moscovici used a controlled laboratory setting which allowed for precise manipulation of variables, e.g. changing how consistent the Confederates were at identifying the colors of the slides. This ensured that the observed effects were due to the minority influence and not any other confounding or extraneous variable or factor. This is a strength because it suggests that the study can be replicated and repeated to ensure that the findings are valid and reliable, and Moscovici can conclude more certainly that his findings were as a result of minority influence. A strength of Moscovici's study is that it supports the involvement of internalization in minority influence. Moscovici varied his study and conducted a follow-up study. Participants wrote their answers down, so their responses were private. Agreement with the minority was greater. This suggests that internalization took place, as participants' beliefs were privately changed, however their public behavior did not, as members of the majority had been reluctant to admit their conversions publicly. This is a strength because it suggests that people may be influenced by a minority but don't admit it, and therefore the effect of the minority is not apparent, even though internalization has occurred unknowingly. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it lacks real-world application. The sample used did not represent the differences in minority groups found in the wider society who seek to change majority opinions. The Confederate minority used here to change the views of the naive participants were told to say that the slides were green and therefore had not internalized the view to the extent that a minority in the real world would have done. Furthermore, the majority group of participants did not know each other and had never met before, they therefore did not support each other's beliefs and did not know where each other stood on the matter. Minority groups in society, e.g. women's rights, gay rights, and animal rights organizations operate in different settings with different constraints. They often face much more determined opposition. They are committed to a cause, they often know each other, provide each other with considerable social support and sometimes devote their lives to changing the views of the majority. This is a limitation because it suggests that the results of Moscovici's study may not be directly generalizable to real-world contexts where minority groups operate in more complex and committed environments. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it breached ethical guidelines. The participants in this study were deceived, as they were told that they were taking part in a color perception test when in fact it was an experiment on minority influence. This also meant that the participants were unable to give fully informed consent. This is a limitation because it suggests that the ethical considerations regarding informed consent and deception in research were not adequately addressed in Moscovici's study, raising concerns about the validity and ethical conduct of the research process. However, it can be said that Moscovici's study required deception in order to achieve valid results, as if the participants were aware of the true aim, they might have displayed demand characteristics and acted differently. Thus, a cost-benefit analysis would deem that the insight gained from such research was worth the short-term cost to the participants, which could be dealt with by means of a debrief following the study, and therefore this increases the validity of the findings. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it suffers from cultural bias. The study consisted of only Americans. American is a Western, individualist culture. The study cannot conclude whether collectivist cultures, e.g. China, would find the same results. It is often suggested that people from collectivist cultures are more obedient and conformist, and therefore it is possible that if this study was conducted in a collectivist culture, then conformity rates would be higher. This is a limitation because it suggests that the study's findings cannot be generalized to other cultures. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it suffers from gender bias. The study consisted of only female participants. The study cannot conclude whether male participants would respond to minority influence in the same way. It is often suggested that females are more likely to conform or obey than males, and therefore if the study was recreated with men, then it could be possible that the conformity rate would be significantly lower. This is a limitation because it suggests that the study's findings cannot be generalized to different genders. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it lacks ecological validity. The study was conducted in a laboratory setting. This setting did not represent or stimulate the wide difference of power and status found in real-life minority influence situations, e.g. political campaigning. The laboratory setting is therefore grossly disproportionate to the real-life setting of minority influence. This is a limitation because it suggests that the artificial laboratory setting used in Moscovici's study fails to capture the diversity of power and status present in real-life minority influence situations, limiting the generalizability of the study's results to more authentic and complex everyday life contexts. A limitation of Moscovici's study is that it lacks mundane realism. The task in this study was to judge the color of slides. This is an artificial task that does not occur in everyday life. This task is far removed from how minorities try to change opinion in real life. In jury decision-making and political campaigning, outcomes are vastly more important, maybe a matter of life or death. Edward Sampson, 1991, stated that the artificial nature of the task, judging the color of slides, may not reflect real-world situations where minority influence occurs, thus limiting the generalizability of the findings. This is a limitation because it suggests that the artificial nature of the task in Moscovici's study may not accurately represent real-world scenarios where minority influence occurs, potentially limiting the applicability of the study's findings to more critical and high-stakes situations where opinions are influenced by minorities. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.